I'm not taking it there. If there's actually popcorn on she did stuff we did last year.
Some of the stuff, we're gonna talk about some other different stuff. Try to sit over here so you can look this way. All right, we're not gonna keep you in this hot room too long, but we have a guest speaker in about 2 minutes, I'm assuming. Hey. Everyone try to sit over this way because we're gonna try to project over this way. This projector is the worst. You want to see the water or you want to see the projector? Huh? I'm saying, you want to see the wall or you want to see the projector? All right. Is that everyone here? You come over there in the. Yeah, over here. We won't stay here that long. That's all? Yeah. All right. Not the best, but you know. Well, what happened? What happened? Somebody knocked the power out? It just pulled out. I just put it back in. It is there now. I turn the lights on for a second for me, please. All right, guys. Let's first start. We don't start any event without doing a Scout Law. So who did I promise this morning we'll do the Scout Law?
No, that's for next week, but we can do it.
These guys.
Somebody, so I promised somebody to this morning to do the scout oath.
That would be fun.
It's somebody else.
They
though.
did, they did. He wasn't out yet.
She did it. All right, Ray, won't you do the law? And anybody, hold on a second. Somebody, because you guys did it the first week. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to do the oath?
Hey, Andy.
When the Saber wants to do the office.
Okay, come on. I'm gonna say. All right, turn the light on for a sec, please. All right, everybody, stand up. Let's say you're doing an oath of law. Oh, you don't, you did a law, huh? On my honor, I'll do my best to do my duty to God and my country, to obey the scout law, to help other people at all times, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind,
Obedient, cheerful, thrifty.
obedient, cheerful, thrifty,
Brave, clean, and
brave, clean, and reverent. Good job. All right. This is second. This is Pack 257, second JOTI celebration or event. Last year, can I just recap what we did last year?
radio.
We learned how to use the radios. What else did we do? Phonetic alphabet. What else did we do? Morse. We worked on the walkie-talkies. Anything else? Somebody said, what's Morse we gonna learn today? All right. Now we're gonna do similar things today. Also, we're going to tomorrow I'll send out a link. If you're able, we'll go on Zoom and try to meet scouts from other parts of the world. Okay, as a part of the celebration. Everyone who's here today, we make sure we get everybody's name because you will get a patch for attending today. All right. Now, we're all going to talk about internet safety. But before we do all that, we can hit the lights now.
Special guest.
We have a special guest. And hopefully we can hear our special guest. All right, we kind of see him. Andrew, Mike, check me, Andrew.
Yes, hi, everyone. Glad to be here. I'm connecting
Hold on a
with you.
second. Okay, we're not. Hold on. 1 second, Andrew. Try it again, Andrew.
Yes, hi, everyone. I'm connecting with you from Europe.
All right, 1 more second. 1 more second. Speaker. All right, should try it one more time.
Can you hear me now?
I'm cooking with peanut oil now.
Hi, everyone. I'm connecting with you from Europe today.
All right, so Chief Andrew is like in the scouting world, he's like our big, super big boss, right? And he'll tell you a little bit what he does in scouting in America. But he also has a really cool job. And if you're really attentive and really nice, he might tell you a little secret. And he's about a bird in his airplane. Maybe he'll tell you the secret. I don't know. All right, Chief Andrew, it's on you.
Okay, hi, everyone. Thank you very much, Ray. and I'm super happy to be with you. I'm actually sitting in the European capital right now. I'm in Vienna, Austria. The weather is rather cool. It's nice outside. It's very temperate, and I'm happy to participate. So, what I was hopefully going to do for a short period was to give you a bit of a feel on what I do when I communicate as a pilot in an aircraft. And if you can imagine, pilots in an aircraft communicate in various ways with folks on the ground, with other planes in the air, and of course, when they are using things like radio nav aids or radio navigation aids, we also communicate with those devices, electronic devices. So to start off, the way we always try as pilots to organize our thoughts when we fly and how we're going to communicate and who we're going to communicate, we kind of use a process. And if you can understand that it takes a little bit of thinking to keep yourself in the right frame of mind. Who am I going to communicate with? What am I going to tell them? So when we orient on, in other words, when we figure out who we have as our audience, we can then begin with our message. What are we going to use to talk with them? Are we going to use a radio? Are we going to use a navigation device? Are we going to type in a computer and talk to them? The next thing we do once we kind of figure out, okay, I want to talk to the controller on the ground because I'm flying, and I'm able then to say to myself, wow, okay, they have a frequency on a radio, and I can look on an actual um, chart, a paper chart. And when I say chart, it's a navigation chart. It tells you how to get into the airport environment. Let's say I'm going to come into Riyadh, and as I'm getting into the environment there, it tells me, okay, contact this person on the ground with this frequency. And so I can type it into the radio, and then I alert them to who I am, and I say my identifying number. In this case, every aircraft has a number, an identification number. And then I say to them exactly where I am and what I want to do. So the example would be this is uh, QREX 525, currently 45,000 feet, and I am squawking 1234. And the squawk is a code. It's very, very discrete. It's very, very unique to my aircraft, what I'm doing. It's something I was assigned. And then the controller then begins to work with me and say, okay, I'm going to ask you, QREX, to turn left, to turn right, to go down to another altitude, or to hold what you got. And then as you get a little closer, you start filtering into other types of controllers. And then as you get even closer to the airport, you switch to the airport tower, and then he'll give you a clearance to land. So this is kind of a process we use a lot. This is a standard thing we use, and it's because we are a worldwide activity, we're always going to use the same process. We're always going to, as pilots, we're always going to use this type of method to talk with various people. If you can imagine air travel and air safety and how this type of activity is conducted, is probably the most synchronous, and that's a big word, but it means it's an activity that's actually organized very, very well. Probably the most synchronous activity on the planet, where everyone is working in cooperation with everyone else using standard words, using a process, and then coming in to bring the plane for a safe landing. So I'll stop there for a moment. Does anybody have any questions, or hopefully everybody heard what I said and there were no interruptions?
No, we hear you loud and clear. Anyone have any questions? No?
Okay.
You
All right.
Got one question. We got two questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
What do you say when radio when you're about to land?
What do you say on the radio when you're about to land?
All right. Okay. So you're going to be talking to the tower. So picture now you've gone through all of these controllers and you've gone sequentially through one radio controller after the next, after the next, after the next. And then what you're actually aiming for is to find yourself at a spot about 5 miles from the runway. So if you understand miles, feet, and this type of distance, so you're about 5 miles from the runway at a very, very specific point along the center line of that runway. So if you're looking with your eyes, if you're looking forward, you're exactly down the center. Picture now when when you're driving on the road, you see the center line on the road. So you're about 5 miles looking at that center line. And then you make a request and you say to the controller, request clearance to land. And there's some very, very standard terms you use. And when you make that request, the controller will make sure the runway is free and clear and safe to land on. And he'll say, you are cleared to land, runway. And then he'll name off the specific runway, runway 24, runway 35. Every runway has a number. It's based on the magnetic direction that the runway is heading. So I'm sure in Scouts you've learned north, south, east, and west. Well, those north, south, east, west words are also tied to numbers. So they'll say 3, 6. And when they say clearance to land, then you can continue and then make your landing. And it's always something that's very, very well organized and very well understood.
Just, hold on. We'll be start. Put your questions in order. So in the meantime, put your questions in order.
Last questions. Begin at so 1, 2. You got a question also? 3. All right.
All right, Chief, we had a little power situation.
Oh, okay. It looks like it. You have a little bit of a challenge going on, Ray.
Yeah, this we keep on kicking the cord out. It's a human error. All right.
So we got a couple more questions.
All right.
Just flying an ATR.
So who has another question? Jamana has a question. What's your question?
What do you say stuff we did last time?
Some of the stuff, we gotta talk about some other stuff.
Hold on a second. Hold on.
Try to sit over here so you can look this way.
Seeing the run before starting radio call.
All right. I think we're good now. So what's the next question?
What do you say?
All right, we're not gonna keep you in this hot room too long, but we have
where
a guest
is it
speaker
going? What's going
in about
on?
2 minutes.
Well, I think, did we have another question, Ray?
Yeah, we have another question. What's the question?
What do you say in the radio before starting to fly the airplane?
All right, what do you say on the radio before you take off?
Oh, that's pretty easy. If you followed everything I mentioned, in the previous couple minutes, you're talking to the controller and they're basically getting you from a place called the gate. So if you've been on an airplane before, you kind of go to the airport and then you go to a gate and you go across a bridge, you get on the plane, you sit, the gate closes, and then you begin to move. And that's called taxiing the aircraft. So when you taxi the aircraft, the controller will tell you which taxiway to go. It's like saying, go down this street, turn right, turn right, turn right, and you get those kind of instructions. And then they'll bring you to the takeoff point of the runway that's in use. And when you reach that takeoff point, you as the pilot tell the controller, I am ready to take off. And then the basic rhythm that now happens is, and it happens very fast, is he'll say, okay, if you're ready to take off and you're ready to go now, take the runway, line up, and then they'll give you what is called a clearance, and they'll say clear to take off, and then you proceed from there. if sometimes they'll say you're cleared onto the runway and hold. So that means that there's something going on around you where the controller can't exactly let you go right now. So you just kind of hold. You might have seen that if you've been on airplanes before where you take the runway and you just kind of sit there maybe for a minute or two. And it's basically a safety precaution. So it's cleared to take off, and then you acknowledge clear takeoff runway, and then you say the number.
We got another question?
You ever come close to crashing?
Have you ever come close to crashing?
Oh dear. Well, um, the best way I can answer that is there have been a couple few times, I have a lot of years in flying, more than 30, where you kind of scratch your head a little bit and you say, that was interesting. I should have planned for that a little better. But when you say close, I wouldn't characterize something as close. I would just say that there's been a couple challenges I've faced where you had to really be careful about what you were doing because the weather wasn't exactly ideal, or something was going on maybe with the airplane that should not have happened. It wasn't functioning normally, so you're always on the alert for that. But by and large, in the many years that I've been flying, there's been, shall we say, the majority of the time, 95%, 6, 7, 8, 9%, this enormous amount of time where you're just kind of doing your thing, flying, and then you do have that odd occasional event here and there which kind of catches your attention, which you have to open a checklist and look at it and say, okay, something failed, so I'll have to fix it and then come in to land. Does that help you?
I have a question. I have a question. What do you do when you're flying? What do you say to that space when you're flying? Like, if it's not.
So maybe that one is, when you're flying, what are the common communication that goes back and forth?
So
Okay.
when you're flying, what common communication that you're doing back and forth while you're
Okay.
in flight?
Yeah, sure. So let's I'll break that down in a couple ways. Um, so the particular plane that I fly uh, can fly for 14 hours straight. So you're gonna to put that in another way, I can go from Beijing all the way to New York straight. That's a long way. I can go from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, straight to Texas, which is a long way. Now, if you can imagine, you work with the controllers at the airport, you take off, you climb to altitude, now you start traveling through airspace of various countries. You then more or less get to Europe, and then you travel across the ocean. Then you make your way to Canada. From Canada into America, and then America, you go down. So you're talking to a wide variety of controllers. You're talking to, and in that sense, with the controllers, they come from all the various countries that are involved. So you're talking to Middle Eastern controllers, then you talk to Cairo in Egypt, and then you work your way north to Greece and talk to the Greek controllers. I happen to speak Greek, so sometimes it's fun just to chat with them over something very, very small, but just to be friendly. And then you go further north to Italy. And of course, you give them the greeting of the day and you tell them where you're at, where you're going. You work your way France over to the United Kingdom. And then you check in with the controllers going across the Atlantic. And then when that happens, you're going to work with your radios exclusively. In fact, the radios are so sophisticated and the navigation aids are so sophisticated, the controllers send you instructions and they can actually take over your aircraft. In other words, you check in with them and they tell you where to go, what to do. They send a message electronically to your aircraft's radio. You hit a button and say, I acknowledge, and then they actually drive your aircraft and give you a clearance. From there, you go over to the Canadians. So crossing the Atlantic usually takes about 5, 6 hours. And then you hit the Canadians, and then the Canadians start handing you off to the United States, and then you work your way down to the controllers in the United States. So you've really done, really through those types of flights, you've really done quite a bit of communication. You're managing a lot of material, many situations. You're managing your fuel. You're telling them what your altitude is, where you'd like to go. But the last thing I'll tell you is we always like to, it's a bit of a chess game with them. That's the best way I can describe it. You're always looking for shortcuts. You do have your flight route, but you're always trying to be friendly with them and say, hey, can I take a shortcut and go directly to such and such a point? Instead of flying all the way through these countries I mentioned, sometimes you can get a shortcut and go straight, from Italy to the United Kingdom.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Hold on a second, yeah.
I have one more.
Sam, come here.
Who did,
You didn't have the question.
who didn't get a chance to answer a question? Ask a question. All right. Ray, ask yours first.
Does contraband plane before takeoff, on takeoff, and during the flights?
When there's what? Contraband?
What do you do when there's a different on the flight? You feel like there's contraband in flights before takeoff, on takeoff, and in the middle of the flights.
Yeah, that's what he was explaining. Like,
When there's contraband? You just,
What is contraband?
okay, I think we hold that question, Ray. What's your question, Jamal?
If you what do you do when you're fast?
Well, you guys are dark, man.
Dog.
They are going to take your place.
I think you just pray.
They are on the queue.
Any other questions? We getting some dark questions about crashing.
Oh, they've been
And
watching too
contraband.
many-
Yeah, we got too many future drug smugglers.
Oh,
Any other questions? You got a question, Galia? All right, what happens, listen up, guys. What happens if the cabin pressure rises?
Okay, whoever asked that is somebody whispered in their ear and asked them a technical question. So or they've been getting in the books somewhere. So my congratulations on that one.
I think this is, Andy, I think this is exam. We're examining them. This is an exam.
They are having their, what you call it, flying counseling.
Okay, what happens when the cabin pressure rises?
Yeah, sure. So good. Right. So that's a good question, and that leads me to a bit of an example, shall we say. So basically, when you're sitting in an aircraft and you're flying, and I mentioned something about 45,000 feet, the actual inside of the aircraft is pressurized. And what that means is there is a system on board the aircraft that's pumping air from the outside through the cabin. And this air that's being pumped in through is designed to mimic or approximate pressure at a certain altitude nearing the ground. And what that means is, example, at 45,000 feet in my aircraft, you might be at 5,000 feet. 5,000 feet is kind of a comfortable altitude. I mean, there's a lot of places in the world you can go at 5,000 and you live perfectly fine there. And the partial pressure of the oxygen at that altitude is quite fine. Now, if something is going on with that system where that pressurization isn't exactly working as it needs to work properly, and what we say is, and this is whoever asked the question, again, has been reading the book somewhere, or they want to be a future airplane mechanic, is where the cabin begins to rise. And so now you're not at 5,000, you're at 6,000, you're at 7,000, maybe 8,000. And just for your edification, when you're in these big airliners, working when you're flying, they're flying at about 9,000 feet pressure altitude in the cabin. I'm at a lower pressure altitude, and it's more comfortable. But so when the interior of the cabin starts to rise, there's a limit where it can't go above. And generally speaking, that limit for our little example here is around 10,000 feet. When you get to 10,000 and higher, the oxygen, the partial pressure of the oxygen gets low, very low, and it's not sustainable to stay at that pressure altitude. Can you live at that altitude? You can generally exist there, but you're going to start needing oxygen. So if you get to 12,000, you're going to need oxygen for sure. If you get higher than that, then it becomes a bit of an emergency. So depending on how high the pressure gets in the aircraft or how high the cabin rises, you might have oxygen drop from the cabin ceiling, and then you have to put that on until the pilot can get the plane down lower and make a safe landing. So there's a lot going on with that question, but I think the answer is in the question itself. What happens when the cabin rises? You get lower quickly.
Any more questions that communication related, not contraband or crashing, communication related? Okay, is that Hamza? Hold on.
How do you maintain the cabin pressure?
We're gonna ask only, let's keep the questions to communication questions, okay? Remember, this is about communication, not aviation per se. Go ahead. What was your question, Hamza? All right, okay, the question was, if you're talking and someone hacks into your channel, what do you do?
Okay, well, I'll take the hack. I'll change that slightly. In other words, if you're talking and somebody jumps on the frequency in the radio and what we call step on each other. So what happens is, let's say I'm talking and then somebody else gets on the channel, on that radio channel, and he steps on you. And then what happens at that point is what you hear on the radio, what the controller hears, what you hear is you hear a gigantic squealing sound, because the two of you, when you're transmitting at once, two stations at once is the kind of the phrase we use. You block each other out. So when that happens, then you have to turn around and repeat yourself. And just like picture you're at a kitchen table, and you're trying to eat your dinner, and you have a big family, and everyone wants to talk, and everyone's talking at once, and they want to get their thoughts out right away. Well, you might have a similar situation where everyone starts stepping on each other. Well, what do? You just wait your turn and make your point, and you carry on what is known as a conversation. So that's you basically react to being stepped on by getting off the frequency, waiting for a second, and then the controller will say two stations at once. Okay, station number one, tell me what you need to know, and then they'll separate you that way. So there's a bit of a courtesy and a protocol there.
All right, we're gonna do one more question. Okay, go ahead.
If there's a solar
Come
storm,
on.
will it affect your equipment?
Oh yes. Oh, there's another person that's been reading the books and getting into, the technical side, but that's good. That's a good question. Solar activity does affect HF radios, high frequency radios. A lot of communication that we've got now is designed to kind of to work under a digital platform, but sometimes the voice and high frequency is used, and you end up with solar storms working when they're active. They work against you because then they create problems within the atmosphere where the high frequency radio doesn't work as well. If you end up, for instance, at night flying, the high frequency radios that skip across the atmosphere and let you talk, let's say Germany to the United States, those radios are less effective or more effective depending on where you are. If you go further north to the solar to the North Pole, which I have flown over and flown around, you end up with other phenomena. And again, because you are exposed to some solar radiation or there's a solar storm, then the effectiveness of your high frequency radios don't are are that is affected right there. So whoever asked that question, that was a good one. I like that. And I encourage you to read up on solar storms, HF radios, high frequency radios. And then when I see you next, hopefully in a week, then we'll get a little further onto that. And I'll
Um,
stop there, Ray. But
Thank you. This is Sylvia and Kylie.
yeah, hi.
Hi.
All right, so,
So
okay. We got two more questions. I'm gonna filter them out. What's your question? What do you say during an emergency?
okay, another good question. Remember I said we kind of have standard phrases we use because that's what the controllers expect to hear. And when you're with countries where English is not the first language, they use they're keyed up for certain words and phrases. Well, one of those key words and phrases is Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. And if you end up saying that 3 times, two things happen. Number one, everybody on the frequency stops communicating except for the aircraft that's in trouble. In other words, remember I said sometimes you get stepped on, or maybe two people are trying to talk at once? Well, that's immediately the protocol to say to everyone, stop talking, let the emergency aircraft talk. And then you give them what's going on, what your intent is, what's happening, and then you can proceed from there. Another one we use is not as severe as Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. You'll use something called pan, 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 pan. And then that's for precautionary. If you remember, all these famous stories about the miracle on the Hudson and whatnot, where the airliner took off and birds went into the engine, the first thing that came out of the flight deck telling the controller is Mayday, 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 and then the controller immediately is straightly on to you. Everyone's quiet, and they want to know exactly what they can do to help you.
All right. One more question. I promise, one more question. Ray, you have a question? Make sure it's communication related.
The plane is struck by lightning.
What happens to the electronic devices if the plane is struck by lightning?
Okay, well, frankly, we get hit by lightning more often than you think. So when the aircraft has a type of protection system called bonding, so that when the lightning strikes a piece of the aircraft, anywhere on the aircraft, it can hit anywhere. A lot of times it'll hit either on the wing or the nose, shall we say, but it can hit anywhere. The skin of the aircraft transmits that electrical energy to throughout the whole body of the aircraft. And if you if you walk around the aircraft, you'll see something called static wicks. And generally speaking, that lightning strike will come out. Sometimes not at the wick, sometimes it'll come out via another part of the aircraft. So I've had one before when I was in the military. It actually ran right through the aircraft, and I was wearing gloves on my hands, and I got a little burn mark right here on the glove because the throttles were metal. And then it ran right through the back and came out on a portion of the wing. And when you looked at real close, you can see there's a burn mark. So there's protection mechanisms for that. As far as the radios go, sometimes it's severe. You might have a really bad incident. I had one going into Luton, and that's in the UK, where I got hit by lightning and I lost the instruments right in front of me. And I had what is known as a heads-up display, and I was able to land. It was right in the last probably 15 seconds of the flight, and we were in clouds and all this. So, you just kind of to be honest. You just kind of transition, you say, oh, okay, fine. And then you look up to the front and then you land on another piece of navigation equipment. And then that's how I accomplish that.
All right, Chief Andy, is there any last words you want to give PAC 257? And we have the members of Troop 57 also.
Yeah, sure. Well, you guys are learning Morse code, correct, Ray?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I'll give you the most famous Morse code. Hopefully you'll be able to hear it just fine. And maybe everybody can tell me what this is. So here's the first letter of the most famous Morse code. Did everybody hear that?
No,
No, I don't think we got it.
Okay. Shall I repeat that?
Yeah, we didn't get anything.
Okay. Let's try it again. Did you hear that?
No, I think you need to share your sound.
Oh, okay. I thought I had my audio going.
Here.
Yeah, from Zoom, you need to share sound.
From Zoom.
The
Well,
computer.
I'll just do it this way. So if I was to say did, what letter is that? 3 dots. Did.
All right, what is that? Is that add
SOS.
SOS?
Yeah, it just goes did dot did. So what is that? Does anybody know?
SOS.
There you go. Exactly. SOS. It's one of the most famous Morse code letters. And so I'll leave you with that. And you guys, when I see you next, we'll play around with some Morse code too. We'll be sending messages to each other in Morse.
Sounds great. I want PAC 257, Troop 57 to give Chief Andrew a round of applause. All right. And I guess we'll see you soon, right, Chief?
Yes, indeed. I hope to be leaving tomorrow morning and be in Riyadh in probably the next 24 hours. Look
Sounds
forward
good.
to it.
Hopefully we'll see you next week. All right,
Okay.
guys.
Thank you.
Chief Andrew.
All right.
All right. All right, guys. This will conclude our Zoom portion of JOTA. Now we're going to go out and do some outdoor activities. See you guys next week. Yeah. Oh, he just left. You'll see him next week. He's coming next week. All right, guys. We'll see you guys next. Bye for now.